Hi everyone, thank you for watching. This is episode 1 of Life Through Anime. So, as I explained in the previous video, the intention of this project is to teach a little bit about anime characters and anime stories, and mainly to kind of give you a reference point and how to deal with everyday scenarios and everyday life. Um, the whole idea is that we can learn a lot by watching anime and by watching what the characters in specific stories do or don't do. And so the first character I wanted to talk about is a character from a very popular anime. The anime is actually called Death Note. And this character's name, he's the main character, his name is like Yagami. So Light is a typical high school student. He has pretty much no real problems. He has no real any no real negative or positive energy to him. He's pretty much your average normal guy, and he has a pretty ordinary life. So for him, he feels like it's pretty boring. For him, he also thinks that he needs some excitement. He might need something else in his life, and it's interesting because Light's father is a police officer and also heads the organization which is called the National Police Agency of Japan, and it's basically a head organization that is kind of gets all the police officers together for different investigations. So Light has a very good sense of right and wrong in his life. Light one day finds a notebook that falls out of the sky and it lands not too far from his classroom. He's intrigued by the whole thing and he goes to look at the book. Well, the book tells him that and promises him that he can essentially play God. He can decide whether somebody lives or somebody dies. And so Light is, like I said, Light is an ordinary guy, but he also is motivated by the idea that he can change the world. Now, was this probably something that he thought of in a very big sense? I would venture to say that he didn't. I would say that he probably considered just the positives of using this notebook, but he never thought about the negatives. He only thought about his intention, which is, and his desire, his want, is to change the world and get rid of all the bad guys and all of the evil, if you will, in the world. But he didn't think about how maybe things could have gone wrong. And there was a lot that could go wrong. Mainly, if you start this, are you going to end up having to continue it? Also, how are you going to decide who is right and who's wrong? Do you really have that sort of internal ability to know what somebody's thinking or what somebody's going to do? So this is the questions that Light just didn't ask himself. Maybe if he did ask himself, he might have considered not using the book. Which leads me to our life lesson for today. So, we're always in situations that we have some curious thing that comes up, and maybe we might consider going into it, or we might dream about the possibilities that might exist by making a certain decision. So let's say you decide that you are going to borrow a certain amount of money, right? You're going to borrow that money and you think that it's going to help you to do something. But you don't do it in an intelligent way. What is intelligent way would be that you weigh your pros and your cons, meaning what's going to be the positive things from this situation and what's going to be the negative things. So, and you borrow that money and you keep borrowing money and you keep promising that you're going to be able to pay it back, but you never really have an idea of what you're doing, how you're doing things, and you haven't gone through the whole planning situation to think about what you're actually doing. That's called acting on impulse. So impulse means that you're doing something, but you're not really sure why you're not actually thinking it all the way through. You're doing it because you want to do it. And that's the only real motivation you have. So, Light really just focused on what he wanted to do and his impulse and how he felt that he should go ahead and become the god of the world. Was that a good idea? Well, the story goes on, and I'm gonna leave it at that. And you would see how the ending happens. So, how do we apply that to today? For me personally, I've had a situation where I went into debt. I borrowed more money than I actually realized that I could pay. I kept thinking, well, I'll get a great job and I'll do all of these things and everything will work out and I won't have to worry about it right now. But I didn't ask myself the situation of all the questions that I should have, like Light, asked myself, maybe how much money can I pay? Is this a good idea? Do I really think that I can handle this amount of money? These are the kind of questions that we should always ask ourselves with any decision. So, maybe you're going into a situation where you are going to buy a house, okay? And if you're going to buy that house, you're being promised the world about it, but you don't really feel like maybe the positives are going to really weigh out what that house is going to do for you. So maybe it's not a good decision for you to buy that house. But because your impulse and you really, really want it, you go ahead and buy that house, and now all of a sudden you can't afford to live in that house. That's just a real life scenario for you to think about. But what are other choices, or what are other decisions that you might have that you come across where maybe you need to think a little bit more about it? And that's kind of what I want to leave you with, is that whatever you do today and for the rest of your life, just think about the situation of Light. Where Light, instead of thinking a little further about whether or not he was doing a good thing by picking up the book and deciding to just go on his impulse and make the decision of what he wanted to do, he didn't ask himself one other question. What could happen? Ask yourself that in every situation, in every decision you make, and that might help you actually make the right answer. So I hope that left you with something to think about. Like I said, these are little daily tips that I'm going to be providing via anime and different stories. And I think that all of these things can be really helpful. They're helpful in my life, and I hope they'll be helpful in yours. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.